This is Greg Troutline with Maritime Reporter TV, and we're here in Oslo at North Shipping 2025, and we're very pleased to be joined again by Eddie Brown of Cummins. As I think you know and can attest, the entire fuel transition in maritime is the dominant theme right now. Emissions reductions, efficiency, different fuels coming along. So when we say either hybrid or emerging and alternate fuels, where is Cummins in that today?
Yeah, I mean, we look at it as a journey, right? I think it's not sort of starting here, ending here, but we've got a long-term view and a kind of a current view of near-term. I think long-term, certainly a long-term energy transition. We talk about carbon neutral, things like hydrogen and fuel cells. That's a longer-term view and something that I think Cummins is really invested in. We've got a Accelera by Cummins, a business unit that really is looking towards those future fuels like hydrogen that'll really get us down to zero emissions in the very long. We think that's further out. Certainly in marine, we've got a longer runway with diesel. Near term, what's possible for us in the near term, where clearly emissions reduction has been on the front end. Everybody's very aware, EPA, IMO, have been doing that work for a long time. Very focused on drop-in fuels. So we've certified all of our product to run on HVO, R100, renewable diesel. Biofuels as well, B7 and B20, depending if it's got after treatment or not. And that's really what can be done today, right? So we're trying to make sure that we're moving today, continuing to do diesel development work, new ratings, working on TCOs, all the things customers need today. As we start to think about the bridge between today and 2050 or whenever that future is on carbon neutral, a couple things. One, you mentioned hybrids. Certainly trying to optimize for the integration of our engines into hybrid and battery electric systems, right? That is a way for us to reduce emissions, reduce carbon today with customers. Diesel electric is not a new technology by any means, but certainly bringing in batteries into those systems. Again, Accelera by Cummins is another way we might be able to look at batteries, but today working with a lot of partners in those spaces. The other, exciting thing we've been working on, a little bit of a continuation of the same message we had at SMM, is really working on the methanol dual fuel path, right? There's a number of fuels that are being discussed today, methanol, ethanol, ammonia, and hydrogen, again, longer term. We're really focused on methanol and marine right now, particularly dual fuel, that is diesel and methanol together. It gives the customer a little bit of insurance as it relates to fuel availability. We don't have globally available green methanol today, so we know that's not available today, at least at a price that customers are willing to pay. But longer term, we feel like that is going to be something we're looking at. So we've got our approval in principle from DNV for our QSK60 engines. So this is what we're calling methanol ready. We're now going to start to work on capability for the methanol, right? And that is finding customers, working with customers to do pilots in the near term. And then as we start to proceed to 2028, 2030 timeframe, really looking at building capability, decisions on, is it time to commercialize this product, working with customers, bring in everything we've learned and then try and deliver that into a commercialized product. But right now, methanol readiness gives us the ability to guide customers to install the Q60 in a way that they can convert it in the future, whether that's bulkheads, tanks, those sort of things. The DNV rules are really clear on how they can install that engine and make sure they can meet those requirements later on.
Obviously, Cummins is active in many different sectors.
Yeah.
I guess when you look at it from the development of these engines, marine is generally considered more conservative, but when you look at the different sectors that you serve, how does all that experience and R&D go into the marine engines?
Great question. Yeah, I mean, marine, certainly a bit of a niche, but important space within Cummins. We have about more than 30 different segments we serve in Cummins, which gives us a great opportunity to leverage the innovation that's going on in more of our high volume segments, all the way from on-highway, power generation, mining, really anchor core segments for Cummins. But again, it allows us to really pull from all of the work that's going on there. I think as that's the evolution of diesel in generally. I mean, we started very early, around 1919 as a company, right, 100 years ago. But early on, we had diesel engines in marine vessels very early on. But the evolution of that, we've continued to pull all of what we've learned in these other segments into the diesel engine. I think it's going to be required, and probably that evolution is going to be shorter as it relates to new technology. So again, as I mentioned, Accelera by Cummins is a whole business unit set up on what are we going to be looking at in the future. So it would allow us, when necessary, to pull from there. We've got development in alternative fuels and a lot of other markets looking at that in mining. and power generation. So again, where applicable, we really can leverage and pull that in. I think that's going to be really critical to technology working in the future, and meaning, one, it is going to be a marine specific solution, but it has to have some scale and volume from somewhere else in order to be able to be, commercialized for customers and be able to afford those things. And I think more importantly, they have to be supported around the world. So again, we haven't talked about service and support, but that's really a core piece of what we do at Cummins. Is we've got a global footprint, allows us to service those applications, especially vessels that are very transient. When they go into another port, they can count on us to be there to support them. So it's really important.
And let's take it from the future to the here and now. Obviously, the marine sector is very diverse. Obviously, the vessel sectors that you serve are diverse.
Yes.
Where do you see opportunity or best opportunities today?
Yeah, a few areas we're looking at real heavily offshore. Certainly we've seen a bit of a revival in offshore, Asia, Middle East, some other locations where we're seeing customers building new vessels again. So that's exciting. I mean, we've had opportunities to repower these vessels a long time, but we see customers kind of bringing those vessels back, the existing ones. So a lot of work there to do to bring those back into service and running. And I think we certainly see some more customers building, and we think we're well positioned to deliver products in those spaces. Again, we've talked about our presence in Asia, lots of shipbuilding going on in China. I think we're right there ready to serve those particular customers. And then once they go into operation, as I said, service and support. Defense is a space that everybody is talking about at the moment, and again, providing good opportunities. Over the time, we've had, projects, real exciting projects, some in North America, some in other locations. But again, that's just an evolving situation that, we think there's growth there as well in defense.